We've seen a bunch of really great Nike SB Dunks this year, but none of them have been anything like this one. This is the born and raised Nike SB Dunk Low that doubled in resale price within a day, got pulled from the Nike sneakers app, banned from selling on StockX, and then seemingly cancelled. Which, considering it's a sneaker that hasn't even released yet, it's already got quite a troubled story. So the drop for these was supposedly cancelled last minute. However, now we have a pretty massive update. They were originally set to drop on July the 20th through different skate shops and a wider release in Nike sneakers on July the 21st. Now this obviously never ended up happening because on June the 25th, the founder of Born and Raised, Chris Printup, was involved in a car accident and sadly pronounced dead on June the 28th. It's an incredibly sad and unfortunate story, and I didn't know too much about Chris Printup or the brand Born and Raised, but his hometown Los Angeles was a big part of who he was and what his brand was all about. He once even said in an interview, "If I leave this earth, this shit is going to live on and on. We built it for the people of Los Angeles." Even right before he passed, he visited his old high school and gifted every 2023 graduate a pair of these Dunks. Now, Nike actually never put out an official statement about pulling this pair of shoes from the Nike sneakers app, but clearly it was out of respect, which is completely understandable. However, this led to months and months of conflicting rumors about this pair of shoes. Some people were saying it was completely cancelled, never to release again, and others were saying it was merely just postponed and the drop is actually coming around the corner. Until today, we now know that this pair of shoes is going to have a release through Born and Raised website on September the 28th. But there's a catch to that release, which is going to unfortunately make it extremely hard for anybody to actually buy a pair. You see, right after Chris passed away, the price of this pair of shoes instantly shot up. Pairs of these were selling for up to $1,000. This insane markup on this pair of shoes was obviously because the founder of the brand Born and Raised is no longer with us. And this kind of reselling behavior is what led to StockX actually pulling the trading of this pair of shoes. So if you managed to get your hands on a pair of these things, you couldn't go onto StockX and sell them. Now, some places like Farfetch are still currently selling this pair of shoes for almost $2,000. Now, the problem with this is that there's not just a couple of pairs floating around out there that a couple people are selling for an insane markup, but it's that there's actually a ton of pairs out there that resellers manage to backdoor through skate shops and different retailers. Now, backdooring, for anybody who's unfamiliar with that term, is basically when a retailer or a skate shop decides to sell the stock that they have of a specific sneaker to a reseller for an insane markup. So let's say I'm a skate shop owner and I have this pair of shoes sent to me by Nike in order to sell it through my skate shop for retail price, but instead of selling it to customers who expect to pay $130 for this pair, I instead sell it to a reseller who's now offering me $300 for this pair, and I'm making double the money. And there's obviously a market for these resellers who can get their hands on it and then sell it for up to $1,000. Now, backdooring in sneakers is extremely common. It happens almost every time there's a super hyped up sneaker release. It's existed in sneakers for the longest time, but it seems like every time we see a story of backdooring happening, it just always ends up in the same conclusion. Images get posted online of resellers having a ton of pairs just all before the actual launch. These pictures are shared online, and anybody who was hoping to get their hands on that pair of sneakers obviously get extremely mad down in the comment section, and after a couple of weeks it all blows over and we don't really hear anything else about it, and it just is rinse and repeat every single time there's a hype sneaker release. I personally haven't seen Nike address it in a capacity to where they even want to acknowledge that backdooring exists. Regardless, what does this mean for you, who's going to go on the Nike sneakers app, put your entry in and cross your fingers? Well, it means that there was originally a limited amount of pairs of these things that were produced by Nike, and now that seemingly a substantial amount of them were backdoored, there's not too many to actually go out to people for retail price. So just be prepared for this pair of shoes to be extremely hard to get your hands on. Now, I will also mention about the release of this pair of shoes, a Nike sneakers release hasn't even been confirmed yet. And on top of that, according to Nike SB or Nothing on Instagram, the US skate shop release for these has been completely cancelled. So as of right now, just the Born and Raised website will have these things available on September the 28th. Now, I do honestly expect a Nike sneakers app to eventually pop up in the next couple weeks, and we actually get a release date for that as well, including other global retailers that were already planning to drop this pair of shoes. Again, the fact that a lot of these retailers received pairs of this shoe so long ago back in June, likelihood that they backdoored some pairs just increases over time. Okay, so you know the story, you know the drama, you know the release date. So let's talk about the pair of shoes themselves. Now, I've had the pleasure of being able to wear this pair of shoes for actually quite a while now, and honestly, I've absolutely loved them. The amount of detail on these, the quality, and just overall the amazing colorway makes these things one of my favorite Nike Dunks this entire year. Now again, it is a very competitive lineup in terms of Nike SB Dunks for 2023. We got the Nike Dunk Low Fly Streetwear collaboration that dropped. I really liked those. The Jarritos Nike SB Dunk Low, those were extremely good, and not to mention extremely hyped up as well. And more recently, the Yuto Horigome Nike SB Dunk Low, and of course the Supreme one. So we've got a ton of really hyped up, really special collaborations. So yes, it's not like this is the only good pair of dunks that's dropped this year. These come with a really nice feeling base white leather. It's soft, it feels decent quality, it kind of feels extra tumbled or slightly pebbled. You find that white leather on the toe box, the medial lateral panels, around the ankle area, and surprisingly even inside the shoe, wrapping around the sock liner and the reverse of the tongue. Blue suede on the upper feels a little bit more like nubuck, and that is for all of the overlay panels, and it feels pretty soft in hand as well. But what really makes this pair of dunks super interesting is just the insane amount of added details to really make this a proper collaboration. So I think one of the most in-your-face details that this pair of shoes has is the giant iridescent puffy Nike swoosh. So this is really interesting. It's that scratchy material that sounds like that, and depending on what angle you view it from, it's slightly white and also slightly blue, so it definitely has that kind of pearlescent look to it. Now that swoosh wraps around all the way to the back of the sneaker, where you find the same exact material on the back tab. This time it has a little bit more of a traditional effect that this material is known for. It has the Nike and Born SB branding, which again changes depending on what your viewing angle is. Also got a decent amount of embroidery on the upper of this pair of shoes, starting around the back heel tab in the traditional Nike SB Dunk placement. This is all stitched in pink, however you've got white stitching around the front of the shoe on the mudguard. It says one block at a time. Now instead of regular perforation holes on the toe box, this pair comes with star shapes, which I think looks pretty cool. It kind of adds a little bit of a different look to it. And that star shape also exists on the two upper eyelet holes, which you can see there is punched out and obviously can be used as regular eyelets. Now at the top of the tongue, it has the co-branding Born SB, same thing that you find around the back of the shoe. However, on the reverse of the tongue is a little bit cooler. It says on the turf. However, if you flip up this little piece of material, it says don't be a lame. The on the turf phrase is also actually on the midsole in this really cool kind of 3D effect print, where it's a little bit of added rubber, so it kind of lifts off of the actual midsole itself. And you have that on both the right and the left shoe. But I think my absolute favorite detail about these things is when you flip it over to the bottom. You've got a semi-translucent outsole which reads Born SB with this giant Nike swoosh in the middle. In the center of the shoe, you also have a little bit of pink. Blue and pink go together really nicely, and it's nice that it's just a little bit more subtle on this sneaker. Now, all of these details on this sneaker get so much more better when you consider the added extra laces that you get on here. So, of course, laced on the sneaker is this pair of blue laces. However, they also give you 3 different other lace options. So it starts with this flat style lace, which is just all over off-white color. And then you've got a pair of white oval shaped laces, but my absolute favorite has to be this distressed pair of pink laces, which also has a bunch of different branding and kind of stitch lines and all of these cool details on them. The pink laces look super cool on this pair of shoes, and if you do manage to get your hands on it, I highly recommend just throwing them on and trying it out. Overall, guys, this is a truly special pair of Nike Dunks that was executed really well. It is definitely sad to see how the release of these things ended up going down with all of the backdooring, but hopefully people will remember this pair of shoes for what it is and not all of the drama that it brought along with the release. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section, and let me know what you think of these. And if you want to stay up to date on all of the latest sneaker releases, well, check that video out over there.